Can't wait to see what fan bases we annoy this week. Hello and welcome to Sportsnet's NHL Power Rankings. I'm Nick Alberga, joined alongside Rory Boylen on Twitter, at the Gold Muzzy at Rory Boylen. That, of course, Rory, with the wave there. And I don't know if you're going to be waving after the ridicule you take this time around, Rory.
You know, every week I look at it and I'm going to say, okay, what is Nick going to come at me with? And again, for the second week in a row, Nick, it's a perfect list. I don't think anybody can have any problem. If your team moves down, I think you know your team deserves to move down. And if your team moves up, well, no one's going to complain about that anyways, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. I'm not sure what the Maple Leafs have to do to get in the true cup contenders tier, but so be it. We could start at the bottom. Somehow, Chicago has got themselves out of the Owen Power contenders list. Why is that the case? Kevin Lankinen or what?
Yeah, you know, I wrote the power rankings for .ca this week, and I wanted to give a shout out to Kevin Lankinen. And I know we talked about, you know, when you're in the Owen Power contenders category, it's going to be awfully difficult or impossible to get out of it. But Chicago, I think they deserve a lot of credit here because this is a team that doesn't have a lot of optimism here. It's clearly a rebuilding season for them. You don't have Jonathan Toews. Kevin Lankinen comes out of nowhere and has been fantastic. The team has lost just one time in regulation in their last 9 games. And so I think that deserves some kind of recognition, especially when you get 3 out of 4 points against a Carolina Hurricanes team that I moved up in the tiers this week. I just think they deserve a nod for that. I don't know how sustainable it's going to be for them in this tier. I would be shocked if they move up from the Mendoza line. They'll probably end up settling at the Owen Power, but man, they actually look better than expected lately. So they deserve that credit and that nod.
Yeah, I'm selling. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, Rory, if you had to pick an emoji to describe the Vancouver Canucks so far, what would it be? Mine would be the poop emoji.
Yeah, mine would be the green face I'm sick emoji.
That works too.
It's a disaster there, isn't it? I mean, they might end up in the Owen Power contenders category before long. They're not as bad as Ottawa, but they're starting to become that team that when you're playing against Vancouver in the North Division, it's time to rack up the stats, right? It's time to get those 2 points. There's massive problems defensively with that team, as we know. They did some lineup juggling, and I don't think it's all, you know, Elias Pettersson is struggling. There's deeper problems going on with that team. And before they could make up for some of their defensive shortcomings with Jacob Markstrom, right? But it wasn't even that bad defensively with this team last year. There was more character there. There was more pushback. They just had more belief in themselves almost too. And now everything about it is worse. Thatcher Demko, I don't think, is the source of the problems there, but he's not good enough yet to lift them out of it himself for long stretches of time. So a lot to figure out. You wonder if there's anybody on the hot seat there, but it's quickly spiraling out of control in Vancouver.
Yeah, quick word. Jacob Markstrom was vital to the success of the Vancouver Canucks. Goes without saying. Up we go to the prove me wrong tier of these NHL Power Rankings. The Winnipeg Jets, they do have goaltending. Last I checked, the Florida Panthers, no, not so much, Roy.
When your $800,000 goalie is out playing your $10 million goalie, you probably got problems. You're not going to have a good time. I mean, Florida, I will say they haven't played any of the good teams in their division yet. But their defensive showing in terms of high danger chances are better than they were last year when they were one of the worst teams. But they just haven't been tested yet. And that game against Nashville on Thursday was just, they imploded. And that's what you're worried about, that this Panthers team is going to become. So I think there have been some good stories. Carter Verhaeghe has been really nice. You know, the big guy stepped up against Nashville in that loss, but still underlying defensive issues, and that goaltending problem is not going away anytime soon.
I still can't believe Sergei Bobrovsky has 5 years and $50 million left on that contract. Up we go. A team that, you know, I think we've argued about the first couple weeks, and certainly with the injury now to Peter Mrazek, I do have my wonders when it comes to goaltending. Don't sleep on Alex Nedeljkovic, by the way, but James Reimer's the number one with Mrazek out. I think Carolina's legit, but that being said, when's the last time a team won that didn't have a bona fide number one, right?
And that's, I talked about this last week. That's what my worry about this team is in the long term. And this is going to be a dynamic list. We don't want it to be static and every week the teams are just staying, right? So you got to give them credit when they're showing well. And this is a team that, again, is a top Corsi team. They carry the play 5-on-5. The shot advantage is there. Chicago gave them a run for their money, but 2 wins against Red Hot Dallas. They beat Tampa Bay, so 3-0 against those teams, the top ones in their division. They deserve that nod. But, I mean, you hit it there. Now that Mrazek is out, how are they going to respond? How is James Reimer going to hold up to having to have that workload? And what does Nedeljkovic do when he's inevitably put in there? So, again, just a really fun team and a lot to like there. And then they are scoring now. But it is that goaltending that is going to be a question mark for them. And now that it's going to feel a bit of a pinch with the injury, we'll see. They can prove themselves.
And finally, Rory, we have a look at the true cup contenders tier of the power rankings here, and the Boston Bruins moving up this week.
Yeah, Boston, with the offseason they had, just wanted to see a little bit more from them to see if there were any lingering effects from the changes there. But when you get 13 out of 14 possible points against Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington, the top teams you're going to be contending with in that division, you're more than deserving of getting a bump up. David Pastrnak is back scoring at a crazy pace. They're one of the top defensive teams, so they're just chugging along. And this is why you don't bet against the Boston Bruins. They're back up in the top tier and probably going to be hard to knock out of there.
Yeah, very well said. Not to mention the Charlie McAvoy breakout is here. Once again, that's Rory Boylen. I'm Nick Alberga at the Golden Muzzy at Rory Boylen, where you can follow along on Twitter. Some brand management for you all there. And this has been Sportsnet's NHL Power Rankings.